course, I completely forgot. So let's start a video off with Bhagavad Gita, because there is a specific purport that I have been stuck on, and I always wanted to share my interpretation of the Gita with you guys. So this is also the prayer beads that I normally wear lately, even everywhere I go, on every outfit, even if it doesn't match at all, or I put it underneath my sweater. So I'm not gonna talk about it too much. I'm just going to read, and you can try to interpret it yourself, and we'll see what we get out of it. So let's begin. Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, to do all the cool stuff, and so we can grow, so other people can find us, and we can create our own little light family over here. This is from chapter 5. It's texts 27 to 28. It's about karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. So the translation of the purport says, shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. So what this purport is insinuating is that if we are able to close our optic eyes and focus on the space between them, between the eyebrows, so our sight being a little bit up, right, instead of down, we are able to be liberated from outside senses. So as we deprive each and every one of our senses, we are able to be more in the consciousness of the universe, thus controlling the mind, thus controlling the senses, and thus controlling intelligence. Which means whenever we are able to close our eyes and just breathe in and out consciously, focusing on this space where we like to call third eye chakra, so our frontal lobe is very important because it gives us discernment, it gives us rationality, and when it's turned off, oh, this is crooked. When it's turned off, where was I? When we are able to focus, right? Or if we are unable to focus, doing this is what gives us control over our emotions, our senses, our desires, our ignorances. And ignorances meaning our egos, our too rational thoughts. We are, with this type of basic yoga, which is awareness of breath and closing of the optical visual receptors or eyes, is the beginning of being engaged in Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness, right? So if we are connecting on a heart level from this place of being at peace with ourselves and with the environment, not having, it's not about not having desires or not having senses activated, because we are, as humans, we have at least 5 senses, right? And through these receptors, physical receptors, we are engaging in our environment. But to engage in a higher or more transcendental level of consciousness, we need to travel with it. And to travel within is to deprive ourselves of these senses. What I'm seeing here is, these sensory deprivation tanks being very helpful in bringing us to this womb of universe state of being. So let's read on. It says, being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. When he is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instructions to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by the practice of mysticism or yoga, known as Ashtanga Yoga, which is divisible into an eightfold procedure called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the 6th chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the 5th is only preliminarily explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the pratyahara, or breathing process in yoga, which I have already touched upon. It's just, the fact that each sacred scripture and all of our life can be as logically and as metaphysically explained, right? So if we return to selves, we are able to channel, right? We are able to hear our higher selves. We are able to be connected to ourselves through dimensions lower and higher than us, and beyond and below of those as well. Because we are able to spiral through our senses, right? We see something we don't want to see, we spiral down, right? Because we haven't processed that sense. And senses aren't just, having the ability to see, smell, touch, and all of that. It's also the senses of it's different senses. It's you sensing with the 6th sense, right? So sometimes we are guided by our 6th sense to use our 1st sense, which is usually the eyes, and we can, subtract from what we see what the lesson is, right? So if we were all, let's say, unable to see, we wouldn't be so judgmental, or we wouldn't care what we wear. We would care how comfortable it feels. And it's the same with other senses as well. And senses can also be ignorance, desire, and that mode of goodness where even that we have to transcend, right? There's a lot of growing and collapsing that has to happen within not just the human being, but within that soul that carries the vessel, right? Of course, I lost where I was. So yeah, this breathing process in yoga, right? It's about keeping the vision of the eyes between the 2 eyebrows and concentrating on the tip of the nose with half-closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether, because then there is every chance of falling asleep. This is something I would like to not per se argue upon, but when you truly close your eyes, you are able to, yes, wander off into different, alpha, beta, theta states of accessing your consciousness. So even though these texts teach to semi-close our eyes and focus on breathing, there's different ways of accessing your visions. So if you are somebody who has certain abilities of clairvoyance, focusing on your breathing with your eyes semi-closed won't be as effective as with eyes fully closed, because you're then able to kind of have that canvas upon which you're able to, through meditation and breathing, enter these brain states that are a bit less conscious, but not necessarily asleep. That is the space between which you can definitely find your visions or answers, or, you know, that's just a side note for those that do these things. So yeah, it's speaking about not just breathing, but moving the breath in inner sight, flowing through the body. So as we are tapping out of the sense gratification of our environments, right? So I will close my eyes, I will not see all my pretty stones and plants and my shoes and everything. And if I close my ears, I will not hear the birds singing. And if I close my mouth, I will not be able to, you know, and so on and so forth. And also the lack of touch may sometimes bring us out of balance. Right now I'm kind of channeling where I'm seeing people that need physical touch, or physical touch is very important to them. It's also, the hurt comes from being sensorically deprived of one of the main senses, and that can also, you know, derail us or sway us in energy, where we're like, you know. That's why breathing up and down your whole body is really important, because that's how we flow through our chakras with breath, right? So we can breathe into different parts of our lungs, you know, we can breathe into the back, we can imagine breathing into the soil, or we can breathe or channel light from above, right? So breathing becomes this system of being connected within as with your surroundings. What this purport is trying to say is actually the importance of shutting off the mind, right? So a lot of ignorance comes from the mind, and from what we see, or what we don't want to see, or what we don't want to hear. And we are usually stuck in these processes of, you know, when we're stuck in our minds, it's an overwhelm of information, it's an overwhelm of emotion. And I've just seen an angel, I swear to God. Thank you, Spirit, for surrounding me. By practicing neutralizing your senses, it actually brings you back into yourself. And you're able to feel where it hurts, right? So we're running away by what gratifies our senses. We're running towards something that will sound good, or a pretty sunset, or the wrong person, because our connection to ourselves is broken, it's disconnected, it's severed. And the easiest way to come into yourself is by reminding your insides that they are alive as well. Because we get so desensitized and overwhelmed. I just was guided to pull some cards. 1444 on the timer, of course. Record keeper and chakra balance. Okay. the number 7 and 19, which is 10. Okay, so I'm getting a message, a love message. Somebody here has been almost like a record keeper. Your heart has been harvesting. Oh my God, such a headache. Well, the image that I was getting was somebody has like this Notre Dame guy that is a librarian in their heart, and they keep these records, these ancient records of soul codes, of karmic soul codes, everybody that hurt you, and it's just such a heavy energy. So that's why the chakra ray needed to come out, because what's happening in this reading, in this transmission, is the nudge from the universe that needed to remind you that you do have a rainbow inside of you, and it needs some light refraction, which to me means you really need to connect with light that isn't flickering, but light that is outside, or rising sun, setting sun, stars, anything that is natural light, even low light in forests or twilight. It's just you blinking more is going to help you reset your visuals receptors as well. But there's a strong reminder of your rainbow may be trapped inside of you, which is showing me like there needs to be this flow and remembrance that your whole body is of multicolor, because our visual receptors of humans see or interpret the rainbow, right? But that rainbow is us. We are rainbow children. We are a chakra system of different energies. And the record keeper, because the 7 reminded me of relationships and everything you ever cared about, like this Venusian Libran energy, 7th house, as well as that spiritual connection, your ability, because you have this ancient wisdom, but it's within your chakra system that is unbalanced. So what I'm getting is like these past life remembrances or karmic, like different encounters with people are so karmic, because your heart has this librarian that needs to be fired because it's all tangled up. So like the whole library is like somebody with 2 left legs was running it and constantly tripped over these books and files. And that's how your heart feels. But it also, I'm getting this caged heart energy where you might have a very, it's like your heart isn't open, but it's not necessarily boxed. It's almost like an ice cube of crystal. So I'm getting, for some reason, angelite could be very significant in extra messages for some reason. But I'm getting like, you know, those icebergs with like frozen animals inside, or ancient bacteria or something like that. It's that type of a record. This is wild. So what I'm getting is your energy, your true heart space, your little ray of rainbow inside that is trying to come out in expressive ways, is being frozen, and there needs to be a process of warming up to release this so-called rainbow, or this mammoth, or this ancient alien DNA or something like that. So being guided to shuffle these. This is like a postcard tarot, so it only has major arcana and some added cards, nothing else. So let's see where the collective is. Oh, the Wheel of Fortune. So we have kolo sreće, that is what it's called in Slovene. And right underneath, what's speaking out is the Big Bang. So, ooh, and the justice. We'll take these. So the wheel of karma, the wheel of dharma has turned, right? So we've talked about this. What's now on the other side, right? Whichever cycle that you're in, you are on top of it. Unconditional love on the bottom of the mineral deck, but you are definitely in this pyramidal energy of having this truth and justice. It's like truth and justice, this spear of light is, I'm kind of getting like, and it hits right in between your eyes and awakens you into unconditional love and into you understanding who you are truly, because you have now taken over your heart. You're like, okay, I'm done. Like, I have to do something different. I have to do something for the sake of justice, because the Big Bang, it is expansion. I saw 2121 on the timer, but it's the point where the universe starts expanding, and this is your point, right? This is your literal point. There's only up from here, collective, because the wheel has turned in your favor. I normally read the wheel almost always as karma, but not in this case, and the outside is crazy, so healing is active. Very gentle. Why am I so gentle? I'm usually not so gentle. Put it in the comments if you're a gentle giant. So yeah, this Big Bang energy is, you have no idea what's gonna happen from this point on, but it's just going to be enormous expansion, because you have contracted, right? You have put yourself literally into this cube. You have deliberately trapped yourself either in healing, hermit, in a relationship. Like, you have kept yourself hidden for this reason, because you had to wait for the wheels to turn. You had to wait for some things to just start moving. And it was this moment of suspension. Imagine before universe was created, there was probably the biggest suspension that ever existed, right? So before everything just went their own way and created beauty, that is of course going to collapse into black holes and nothingness. However, energetically, you are moving slowly towards one of your fastest timelines. Like, if you felt stuck, if you felt like nothing is moving, no opportunities are showing, from this point on, you're going to be a projectile. That's what I heard. There's a lot of this pillar energy and up energy and spear energy. So I'm getting this Sagittarian energy for some reason, and a lot of fire. And your fire placements will definitely help you stay aligned, or maybe get one, like those extra points of, okay, wherever I have a fire energy in my natal chart, that maybe needs to have another look, because that's how I fire this bad librarian. Okay. Because what we're doing here is coming into unconditional love. This is Christ consciousness card, literally. Well, not literally, because there's another Christ consciousness card, I think, inside, but one love is us connecting through our heart spaces and in good intention, without those feelings of wanting to destroy this planet in any way or destroy another person's feelings or anything like that. So one love is understanding that things are binary in the universe. We can have love or we can have fear. And if you feel fear, you're definitely not going to be able to feel great love. And we're all collectively striving for that, what we have actually incarnated here to come above our senses and to come into our heart space, which is hard in this society because most people, they care more about money. They care more about having or instilling fear in other people or having weight over them, whereas we are very fair and lucky, you know. We're ready to expand into these beautiful fractals of the universe. That's how light beings also connect, because when you're truly in your rainbow self or balanced chakra system, you're able to go, you're able to show path, you're able to guide, you're able to teach, you're able to help. And before that, you're only able to be hurt because you were unable to help yourself, right? So you had to fire these record keepers inside your chakras, inside your karmic wheel. You had to be fair to yourself. And that's how you also made the wheel turn. So as much as we listen to ourselves, that's how much dharma or good karma comes in for us, because the wheels are constantly turning, as is our planet, as is our solar system. And we're not just going around for the sake of going around, we're also moving through space. And moving through space with so many senses and seeing horrible things, reading horrible things, listening to horrible social media. And it's not about not being informed about what's going on or being completely ignorant about that. I'm not speaking about that. It's about not being swayed by any of these visuals or any of these sense activations. What has to happen is, you know, great expansion into what's fair and what's just and what's true. So if you have been watching the news too much, it's not that you need to stop watching the news, but using discernment and your path and your voice to align with what's right and still share and, you know, be connected to source and doing things from source, not doing things from fear or from ignorance or from a bad karmic past cycles, right? So I'm getting this realignment on paths and getting back on track with yourselves and being actually boosted into your new routines and being just high energy, ready to work, ready to rumble like with the Antichrist, you know, because we are going towards unconditional love, and first we need to show it to ourselves.